Welcome to Conversations with Corrections, hosted by the Utah Department of Corrections. This occasional podcast features staff, incarcerated individuals, and other stakeholders of the UDC discussing issues that impact corrections, both nationally and within the state of Utah. Here is today's host, Department Spokesman Liam Truchard.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Conversations with Corrections. I'm Liam Truchard, and today we're joined by Michelle Rabine. She is the spokesperson for the Salt Lake City Mosquito Abatement District. Michelle, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we're also joined by Sean Anderson. Sean is the Director of Facilities for the Utah Department of Corrections. Hi, Sean.
How are you doing?
Let's pretend we don't know each other. Okay?
All right.
So obviously, the reason we're having this conversation today is we had a move to a new facility in Salt Lake City last July. And even though we've had crews out there for the last 5 years or so, for whatever reason, mosquitoes were bad. And can you tell me why they were so bad last year?
Sure. So we're seeing so many mosquitoes and other biting insects out there. I mean, first of all, the new facility is in a very rural, remote area in the wetlands. And so there's just automatically going to be tons of biting insects, mosquitoes, other types of invertebrates out there. And then when you have now a move of a few thousand people plus out there with new buildings, infrastructure, just human bodies available, that's attracting these mosquitoes as well as the biting insects. You have more lights that are attractants to these mosquitoes. Just our breathing, it attracts them. So CO2 is an attractant for mosquitoes. Increased humidity within the buildings and things like that. So all of these different factors come into play, and you get tons more mosquitoes that are just swarming. You have warm bodies there for blood meals. So that's pretty much part of the reason that there's a lot.
Okay, and so last year, even if we weren't there, was a bad year for mosquitoes, period, correct?
Yeah, and, historically, SLC MAD hasn't treated those areas just because it is such in a remote area, and there were never people or infrastructure and buildings out there beforehand. So we never had to do treatments out there, but now with so many more people and, even more development, not just the new prison facility, but other types of warehouses, different buildings that are being put up out there, there's just going to be an increase more of people, which leads to an increase of these biting insects and mosquitoes as well.
Now, last year was a bad year. We've had a lot of rain, snow, moisture, water. And it's been cold, so it's kind of delayed things, correct?
Yeah, so as long as the temperatures stay cold like this, that will keep the mosquito numbers down. But as soon as it gets to about 60 degrees or above, that's when we'll start seeing hatching of the mosquitoes. And so they can overwinter in storm drains, old buildings. Some different species of mosquitoes' eggs can stay dormant for several months to a couple years, depending on the species. So it can lay dormant in soil. So there's a lot of different things depending on the mosquito species. But as long as we have this cold weather, then we won't see as much development. But if we get warm cold snaps, mosquito larvae will continue to develop just a little bit slower until it gets warm again, and then they'll speed up that process.
With so much water, are we looking at another bad or maybe even worse mosquito season?
So there's different factors that come into play for that. So we have to look at the environment, the biology of the mosquitoes, ecology of the mosquitoes, as well as other things in the environment and habitat. And the thing that we always say that we really love about our job for mosquito control is that no two seasons are the same. So it can be kind of tough to predict until you're in it. But yeah, with the amount of rain that we're getting, and not to mention there's a lot of private landowners around there. So you have the duck hunting clubs, and they want to keep their fields wet and flooded to attract the ducks and migrating birds for the next season. So there's a lot of different things, the rain, other people doing other activities that will attract these mosquitoes. We will get a lot. And if we have another warm season like we did last year, plus with on and off rain, drought, that will also increase mosquito numbers too.
Well, that's not good news.
No.
So Okay, so what is the mosquito abatement district going to do, or how are they going to help us as a Utah Department of Corrections keep the mosquito population in check? You're not going to eliminate these guys. These guys are going to be here. They've been here. They will be here. But what can be done to keep them in check?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think we've already started to take some of those steps, speaking with Sean as well as other folks at the Utah State Correctional Facility. So, collaboration is the big key, is to communicate with everybody and make sure that we're knowing what we're each going to be doing, how we can do these different types of activities. At SLC MAD and a lot of other abatement districts and other vector control agencies, we use something called integrated mosquito management. So coming up with a lot of different methods and measures that we can do to combine together. So different biological, physical, chemical control of mosquitoes, as well as other biting insects. And doing training for different staff. So next week, I know there's a couple correctional officers that are coming to SLC MAD to take their pesticide applicator license exam. So then that will then allow them to be able to apply treatments themselves and also work side by side with us so we can continue training, collaborating with other scientists to get new ideas and methods that we can bring to the new facility to test out to hopefully control these mosquitoes as well as other biting flies, other types of insects, midges, all of those.
Okay. Now, Sean, what's the UDC's role now? Michelle mentioned that some of your staff are going to be trained in mosquito abatement. What are some of the other steps that the department is taking to mitigate mosquitoes?
Well, that's one of the biggest things that we're going to be doing is having our staff trained to do the larvicides in the storm drains, which we've got over 450 storm drains just inside the secure perimeter. So we've got a ton of work to do there, which hopefully will be a big help for all of us to stop some of these mosquitoes from reproducing. We've looked at some other ideas that we've started some little traps. We've done a few of those, but we've got some ways to go before we can get those really implemented because there's so much to do they require power and they require, a lot of time and effort to make it happen. So we're working on it, but one of the biggest things did get is the legislature approved $300,000 going forward every year to go towards mosquito abatement, which the Salt Lake City Mosquito Abatement District is going to be helping us out a ton doing that. And so that's going to be huge just with the extra resources available with that funding. So that was awesome, really.
Now, the district uses planes, drones, people, trucks, whatever. But what are some of the challenges of trying to abate mosquitoes around a prison?
Yeah, so there's of course several challenges, and that can be from access to, safety of everybody, including the offenders, staff on both sides, and just making sure everybody is still being protected from the mosquitoes. So making sure people have proper PPE, repellent, and things like that. And, like Sean said, there's so many catch basins and storm drains in there as well. So it takes a lot of time and personnel, manpower. So just trying to figure out scheduling and figure out who is going to be doing these activities. So that's some of the challenges. But I think we've been working really well together so far ever since the new move happened, giving each other recommendations and suggestions on what we can do. And then we're seeking also external funding. So SLC MAD received funds through the Western Integrated Pest Management Center to bring some mosquito education and outreach to correctional staff as well as inmates. So just trying to figure out different activities and things that we can do to address those solutions and challenges of abating mosquitoes and reducing them as well as other biting insects there. But I think we're doing a really good job so far, and I think it's only going to improve.
Now, having been out there a number of times myself, I've noted that most of the building had stopped right about 5600 off of I-80. Since the prison has been built, they have built another warehouse right next door to the prison. They are building a warehouse a couple hundred feet away. They have just cleared land to put yet another warehouse about a half mile in front of the prison toward the freeway. So now you have all of this new building going on. Two questions. One, will that impact mosquito breeding, either negatively or positively? And then the second thing is, does that add more layers of bureaucracy for the management, the mosquito abatement district, because they have to go now check with all of them and do flyovers or, treatment or whatever?
Yeah, so I think having more infrastructures and buildings and also people just working at these different locations will impact and influence mosquito populations, so it'll increase them. You have more resting sites then for mosquitoes. Depending on how they might have their landscaping too. I mean, little things like that come into play. So you want to make sure that things are xeriscaped. So there's less bushes or vegetation for mosquitoes to be resting during the day to prevent drying out and things like that. If people are going to be working outside as well, that just continues to attract those mosquitoes. So there's a lot of little things that will impact that. In terms of the way that we manage and treat for mosquitoes, we might have to continue opening up these conversations with those people that are going to be at these new buildings and different companies that are being built around those areas. But I think most people would agree that they want mosquitoes gone. So I'm hoping that we wouldn't have an issue talking with them, and we would be on the same page. But we always could use everybody's help when it comes to mosquito control, and anybody can do it, whether that's just draining standing water, like I said, landscaping. Make sure that you're checking your watering schedule so there's not areas that are pooling with water that could create larval sources. Lots of little things. So we're always open to talking with different people to help mitigate mosquitoes and just overall protect public health.
And one thing I had actually forgotten about till now is the added layer of there's a number of groups that don't want the mosquitoes mitigated in any way because of bird populations or other environmental concerns. How difficult is it, and how do you balance those two seemingly competing objectives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good question as well. So we do have connections and we do have working relationships with, for example, the Audubon Society. So we're always meeting with these people, talking with them to make sure that we're on the same page with our treatment methods. And the big thing is that we're always continuously doing mosquito surveillance. So we always justify our treatments and our actions with surveillance and monitoring of mosquitoes. So we're not just going out there spraying like crazy all over the place. We also do non-target insect studies, different organisms to make sure that how our treatment methods are affecting these different non-target organisms. And with our monitoring and surveillance of mosquitoes, we have different traps that we set up. And so it tells us the species composition, so what's there, what numbers are there. And we always use those, and we have action thresholds. And we also consider virus activity as well. So if we have mosquito-positive pools for West Nile virus in one location, that also is another justification for us to be able to do these treatments. But we always talk with people and keep that open line of communication and make sure they know what we're doing. We know what they have going on. If there's certain projects or things that they're very sensitive for them, we just make sure that we have that open communication in order for both of us to be able to do our jobs effectively.
Okay. Nishan, are you going to have to add staff as a part of treating mosquitoes at the prison?
Well, for right now, we're using the staff that we have, and so we're going to have 4 of our staff that will be trained and able to do the larvicide applications. So we're going to see how it goes. I don't know. It's going to be time-consuming when they go around to do these drains. Like I said, there's 450. But right now, I don't have any additional staff. We're just using what we got.
Okay, and honestly, how much did you worry about mosquitoes before, either at Central Utah Correctional Facility or Utah State Prison?
Before, no, we never really. You'd have mosquitoes, but it wasn't really a big concern. Nobody ever talked about mosquitoes. But now, yeah, it seems to be the topic that everybody wants to talk about. So, I mean, it is. There's a lot of mosquitoes out there. We're in the wetlands. So.
Michelle, how long does it usually take in a bad mosquito year, or a typical mosquito year, not to neutralize mosquitoes, but to make them at a manageable level? And is there a measurement that says this is a tolerable number of mosquitoes per square inch?
Last season, when we had to start doing aerial control around the prison, and we do aerial control both for larvae as well as adults, but we strictly only do aerial controls out on our rural side in the wetlands. We never go over residential areas, like on the east side of Salt Lake City. And I believe we were doing applications at least once a week for adults. So the mosquito life cycle can happen between 5 to 7 days from egg to adult. So again, thinking about air temperature, if it's extremely warm, then mosquitoes are going to be continuously reproducing, hatching, and then, of course, biting people, as well as other organisms, too. So in terms of neutralizing them, I think in a location like a wetland habitat that it's difficult, but we're able to reduce them as long as we keep up with these different methods. So we're using integrated mosquito management, doing backpack treatments, hand treatments, aerial control, both larvae and adults, ULV fogging from the truck, going in using drones and things like that. So I think as long as everybody that's involved with this continues to keep up with these different methods, and like I said, it can be as simple as empty standing water in an artificial container. These little things really help. Mosquitoes only need a teaspoon of water to thrive, and so checking small little spaces that maybe you wouldn't have thought would be able to be a larval source is a big thing that can help as well. So like I said, I think as long as everybody is keeping up and being consistent with these different reduction measures, and especially over time and as the years go on and we really refine our strategies, I think we're going to be in decent shape to try and help mitigate the mosquito numbers out there.
And just to be transparent about the subject, a lot of people are going to wonder, what is the impact on other wildlife when you're treating mosquitoes and things like that? So what is that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're all licensed for our pesticide applicator license at the district as well as other vector control organizations, and the label is the law for us. So you have to follow the instructions on any types of pesticides, chemicals, whatnot that is on there, and the instructions are clearly listed on there. So as long as we're applying at the proper rate and following the instructions, there is very little adverse negative impacts to other types of organisms that we're not trying to target compared to mosquitoes. And according to the EPA as well, so that's the Environmental Protection Agency, as long as we're following those instructions and the labels, that is the proper way to apply, and it is safe to use out there.
Well, those were all the questions I had. Is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners about anything else that we've missed?
So I'd like to share some basic prevention and production measures with folks. So this could be anybody at any time. Make sure that you're paying attention to when you're outside. So if you're playing sports or gardening or just hanging out on your front porch, pay attention to what time of day you're out there. Certain mosquito species will target you during dusk and dawn. Other more aggressive species, which might be like our Aedes mosquitoes, they might be biting during the daytime. So you just have to really pay attention to where you are. Make sure you're wearing long sleeves, long pants, even hats as well. Mosquitoes are sneaky and they'll try and get to anywhere that you have exposed skin. Make sure you're using the EPA-approved insect repellent as well. So you can go on the EPA's website as well as Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website. They list different types of repellent you can use. You can check out the Salt Lake City Mosquito Abatement website as well. We have links to different resources and prevention methods too. If you are within our jurisdictional boundary of SLC MAD and you have mosquito concerns or issues, you can call us, of course, go on our website. We have service request forms that you can fill out, and we pride ourselves on answering those service requests within 24 hours, at the very latest 48 hours. So just, being aware of when you're outside and your surroundings, and empty that standing water in your yard and call us if you have issues.
And for anyone else listening, the department has also found a approved repellent that can be safely and securely used inside a facility. So that will be made available to our population as well. Michelle, thank you very much for being here. Sean, you as well. And everyone, thanks for listening to Conversations with Corrections.
This has been Conversations with Corrections from the Utah Department of Corrections. These podcasts are on our website at corrections.utah.gov or on the UDC YouTube page. Suggestions for a future topic can be sent to corrections@utah.gov. Thank you for joining us.